welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. So the main gist is this week's episode we're going to talk about Sympathy for the Devil, talking about villains that, how would you describe it? Villains that you feel sorry for, villains that you don't think deserved what they got, like you see where they're coming from.
So that's interesting because I was trying to even define like villain in a horror movie to me, right? Like sometimes like the villain isn't even like what you would expect, right? Like, I feel like the last time I watched the original Jaws, I was like, the mayor is the villain. It's not
he is.
Not even the shark, you know what I mean? It's like the mayor, right? So like
he's very negligent about the safety of his
right,
town.
the shark is just doing what he does, right? Like the mayor is like, he has a chance to do the right thing and just is like, screw all you people.
Yeah, he's,
right.
The sheriff's like, listen, I strongly suggest.
Right.
We saw one guy get it or one girl get it earlier.
Like Matt Damon said in The Martian, like I'm looking forward to not dying, but they don't get the chance. Everyone's gonna die.
Everyone has it coming.
Your mayor sucks. So like, I don't know. It's gonna be weird because I don't even like how to define the villain, but I think what it is, like the way I think about it is that, if you feel like at any point during the movie, you're rooting for the villain and it's not for entirely bad reasons, then you have sympathy for the villain.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Or is that dumb?
No. That makes sense. Like that is having sympathy or compassion,
Right,
for the villain. So So let's just kick off the conversation. Who comes?
Yeah, no, wait. Let's say this up front so that it's like it's going to be obvious really soon. We didn't tell each other our picks in advance.
No.
So like we're just gonna like spring it here, right?
Yeah, I talked to Alex about my pick last night, which I'm curious to see what you think. So so I guess.
Wait, before you tell me any of the picks, like how many did you have? Like how many did you have to rule out?
I went through like every villain. Like
this podcast took a year.
I went through like every villain. Like I was like going through my head. I was like, I just need a list. So like I put, I was like horror movie villains. Like I was like, let me put the face to it again, and like
I'm gonna Google that right now.
Think about see them, and there's a few who I was like, okay, I clearly don't like whoever the killer is in like the Scream films. I usually don't have sympathy for. So like I started with ruling out everyone.
Awesome.
First, and then I started looking at people who like.
But wait, I'm just curious, like, because I always like I'm a naturally skeptical person of like the automatic. So why is the Scream villain automatically out?
Because I think, I could have sympathy for them because I'm like, obviously they're sick. They wanted to kill those people for one reason or another, which is why I was like, no, I can't. If I go with that logic, I'm going to feel sympathy for everyone. But the fact that they were so like malicious and like really fucking planned it out, and like they taunted the people throughout the film,
right,
and fucked with them. They didn't make the list.
So it's because like they would say in like court, it was like premeditated, like malice, right? Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah. So
they're out.
So they're out. So then I was looking up like people, like Dracula and all them, and I was like, well, they had really, they had shit they went through. Mm-hmm. And they're just trying to do something. So I don't want to ruin my number one or my number two of my. It's so hard.
I know it's so hard. It's so hard. Like if you care about this, like it's super hard because I went through like hell trying to.
What's worse though?
I had like a bracket thing. Like it was March Madness for like horror villains in my head. Like I was like, no, you're out because you. But anyway,
because this reason or another. Right. Yeah, and I did this like really fucking nerdy thing where like I would rule someone out, but like in my head I'm like, but it's not about you, man. Like, don't feel bad.
Don't be mad at me, Freddie.
I was like, well, like Jason was one. Like,
right.
I was like, I feel it, and then there was a few that like iconic villains that I wanted to have, but if a villain is like not doing something on his own will, so like I wanted to say, I told Alex, I was like, I got my number one for like George is gonna love this, the Headless Horseman. Like I feel sympathy for him, and she was like, well, really, like, he's being controlled by a witch, so like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and I don't think he really cares. He just wants his head back so he can like get out of limbo.
So the witch is the villain, actually.
So the witch would be the villain,
manipulating.
But then I don't feel sorry for her.
Right.
because
So
like
then-
the Scream people. So then I was like, shit.
Not right.
I was just looking for a reason to put the Headless Horseman in there because he's
All right, so like a one real quick like question of like kind of the rules, right? Because I found myself struggling with this when I was thinking about it.
it sounded
Like-
so easy when we came up with it. Like
It did.
the idea
It totally
for
did.
it.
And actually, I Googled that phrase and I didn't find much, but I found a couple things, and it seemed like it was pretty easy for people, but it wasn't as easy for me as it was for them because, like,
Well, a lot of them were just
well, and we're gonna get into this because the lists are dominated by Stephen King, and I have like
Yeah.
I have a couple ideas about like why that is and why I don't necessarily agree with it, but. The thing I was going to ask is, I decided when I was doing it that I was just going to ignore any issue of canon, right? So, like, for example, if I was going to say Michael Myers from the first Halloween, it would just be Michael Myers for the first Halloween. It wouldn't be any other movie that gave you any other backstory or anything like that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
Like,
good.
or if it's a horror
makes
movie
this-
that was based on a book, like a Frankenstein, right? I was just going to go with the movie and not bring in what I know from the book, right? Because like you just got to deal with what the one piece, right? Because like it changes over time. Like there's like they tried to make you so much more sympathetic towards Michael Myers in like the Rob Zombie iteration,
Yeah.
than like the original John Carpenter one, right? So then I was just like, fuck that. I'm not even going to deal with that. Like if I pick I pick Michael Myers reboot, then I'm just going with that one and I'm going to ignore the rest of Michael Myers. Like, is that fair? Like,
No, I think that's completely fair because otherwise they just put a lot more jelly in that donut, and you're like, it makes the choice. It makes the choice so much harder.
Right, exactly.
Which actually, it's funny you mentioned Frankenstein. That was Alex's.
It's Alex's.
Alex's
That makes sense.
Because
That-
he's like, I don't want to be here. He's like, why did you do this?
he was in my Final Four bracket.
Which is funny because someone in his world made it to my number 1.
No! Spoiler alert. Damn it. Okay.
So you're Steve. Okay, so we
All right,
talked.
well, wait, before, not to throw like the whole train off the track here, but I'm just really curious, like off the top of your head, while you were hunting for this, did you come up with a least sympathetic villain? Because
Oh yeah,
who's the least?
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill. Okay.
Well, but then Alex, God damn it, this is why you can't talk to writers about it. Because Alex
Right.
goes, well, society just didn't let him be a woman, so then he went and killed all those people. Like, Buffalo Bill couldn't be
yeah.
him. And then I was like, well, shit, now I feel terrible for him. But at
Right.
the same time, it's like, he wasn't really that good of a dancer in front of the mirror, so I have no sympathy for him.
So yeah, no sympathy for that devil.
So, but then
Buffalo
we
Bill.
switched it. Then it ended up being Hannibal. But then, you know,
Okay.
everyone has a fucked up, like, most people that you have compassion for had a fucked up.
Right.
past.
Anytime there's a backstory.
Which is why it gets hard. But Hannibal is like, he's very mathematical about everything he does. He's very suave about it. So I think Hannibal
Right.
has the least amount of sympathy because I don't know if it's like, I don't know. He just makes the list and he's such a cool fucking character. I can't even tell you why, but you're like Hannibal and people are like, yeah, sure. Yeah,
That makes total sense. Huh. That's interesting.
okay, so yours.
Well, I realized that the title of our episode was totally apropos for me because, like, my least sympathetic villain is the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Like Al Pacino in Devil's Advocate, which isn't really a horror movie, I guess, but I mean mostly. But like, okay, so you got mad because you're proud and you got thrown out of heaven. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have eternity to work out a plan. Your plan sucks. You always fail. And you have no reason to do what you're doing except for you got mad one time for one thing. Like, I know I'm simplifying. Theologically, that doesn't make... But in that movie, it's bullshit. Like, this guy is, like, the worst villain, the worst motivation, like, the worst plan. Right? Like, there was just nothing for me to be sympathetic. I couldn't be sympathetic because of your backstory. I couldn't be sympathetic because, you know, what you were trying to attempt to do made any sense. And you weren't scary. So,
and you're
like-
the devil.
right? Like, you had every resource at your disposal to make things happen for yourself, right? So I was like, you know, fuck you. I actually don't have sympathy for the devil. That guy's out.
Well, you know, I brought up one yesterday, which is just relevant because we saw it not too long ago. But the demon or whatever her name was from The Conjuring,
Yeah.
because like her sole purpose, what was her title? It was like the demon of like disruption or vile or something like that. Like
Right.
her whole existence was based off like terror
Right.
and just like, you know, fucking people's day up.
Totally.
So like for them,
It's a very simple motivation, right? Like
Yeah.
it might be complicated how they got to that horrible position of being in hell, right? Like you have to have some really bad life choices, I guess, right? So, but it's, you're right. It's like once you get to that point, like you're just, but see, this is okay. So the one, this is
bring it on.
right. Okay. So I'm gonna lay out one of my people that almost made it. And then we're gonna go down the Stephen King rabbit hole.
Okay.
So Cujo,
Yes.
has to be like the most sympathetic villain, but I didn't pick him. But I would have thought that he would have to be, right? Like everything told me that like when innocence gets corrupted and like you don't know what you're doing and like it's like a biological like you're a puppet of something that you can't fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how sad is that could happen to like anyone, right? Like imagine someone you cared about getting reduced to like the condition of Cujo. It would be the fucking saddest thing in the world, right? So like I was like Cujo's got to be like the top, like whatever. But then this weird thing happened. The more I thought about it, the more I thought that there's two Cujos, right? Mm-hmm. And the first one is like the family dog or whatever, like he was when he wasn't infected, right? And the second one's the villain, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for the second one. Mm-hmm. It's like Jekyll and Hyde situation, right? Like it's not you were one thing and then you became something else, and the second else is the villain, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, I don't have a lot of sympathy for that creature, right? Because like if some creature was attempting to do that to like my family, like my wife or child or like whatever, like situation like that, like I would have absolutely zero sympathy for like whatever. So I was like, man, I wanted Cujo to be up there, but like he's like two things to me.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
That makes sense because I thought I had this similar situation when I was like thinking of the Wolfman. I was like, he's pretty like he doesn't want, when the full moon comes around to turn into this guy and like, fuck people up.
Right.
But I was like, I just couldn't make the list because I was like, but the wolf's just doing like what it does.
Exactly.
Like he's probably like starving, so he's like, I just want to eat some people. And I was and I wasn't thinking of like the 40s Wolfman. I was thinking of American Werewolf in London. Wolf, where like he just is like because he just went and like fucked everything up.
Right.
So yeah, and then I thought of like Jekyll and Hyde. I'm like, well, he's kind of like. I don't know. Like it made the list really hard because you're like, I want to pick this, but like, it's already such a well-rounded character that like it has its reasons. So like you can't.
And like by the own logic, like shout out to Alex. By Alex's logic, like you have the scenario with like the wolf where the moon is kind of like the manipulating witch.
Yeah.
Right. So like. To have the person really be a villain, like I feel like they have to be almost entirely autonomous or self-motivated. They can't be getting steered by something bigger or like them, which is like obviously like everyone in Silence of the Lambs is getting manipulated by Hannibal Lecter, right? So like Hannibal Lecter truly is the villain, even if Buffalo Bill is like the end goal of the hunt for that particular plot line, like. His fate is out of his hands. Like the FBI is coming to his house because Hannibal Lecter's like taking him down and he's just for his own purposes, right? So like I don't even like I feel like the villain has to be like basically at least in charge, if not of the entire course of the movie or the events, at least from their side of it, like what they're bringing to it. You know what I mean? Like Carrie is out of control for most of her movie, but like when she flips to true like villain mode, like she's in control of that entire situation and she's the one doing it. Like she got pushed, but at that moment
she's had enough. She's like, you know what?
Totally right. So when you Googled, so this is why I figured we would go down the Stephen King rabbit hole real quick, because before we go more picks, because when you Google most sympathetic horror villains, it's almost all, it's like Jack Torrance, Shining, Carrie White, Carrie, Cujo, like, because Stephen King really loves to take a character and push them until they change into something they didn't want to become necessarily.
Yeah, they're pushed.
Or they had something latent in them that comes out, but like it didn't have to. It's just they got put in a really unfortunate circumstance, right? And that's really weird to me from like a villain mode, because like if you came up behind me and scared me, or like, George, name the villain of The Shining, I'd be like, Overlook Hotel. Right? Like, I'm not counting Jack Torrance as the villain of The Shining.
Not the creepy bartender, not the hot babe in the bathtub.
No, not the hot babe in the bathtub. Definitely not. Right, but that's the thing is like I'm curious of what you think about like, so the whole, I feel like almost every Stephen King thing was out for me because I didn't, and I there's a couple associations I have with Carrie that I wanted to talk about, but like it's they're not the villains.
No, they're pushed, beyond their points, which is what makes them really interesting characters. Like, because if they were, because like that's the thing, like if you're a villain, if you're bad just to be bad, you're not interesting. Which is why a lot of people online, they hate the reboot of Maleficent. They're like, oh, they ruined a great Disney villain. I was like, but was she really that great? Like, she was just like, I'm an evil witch because I'm an evil witch. And I'm like, no.
Right, no.
No. Like, give us a reason as to why you're doing the things you do. And I fucking loved it. I was like, they took out, they cut off her wings. She was like, fuck you, I'm your child. Like, you're not gonna have a great day. And even though they kind of made it like savvy, like she ended up like kind of like, loving, Sleeping Beauty or whatever. I liked it.
Right.
I liked it. So I think, and that was the other thing, is like, if you're a villain to be a villain, I don't really like you. The only thing that really works for is like the Joker, and then that's it. Like, I can't think of it. Sense. Because like his whole thing's anarchy. So it's like, okay, fine. Like, you've ran with that for like a bunch of decades.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
You do you, boo. So
exactly.
I can't do it. So yeah, Stephen King.
So Carrie is, here's the thing. There's one of my favorite movies of all time is Val Lewton's Cat People. And, I went back and watched a little of it and I was like, wait a minute, this is basically Carrie, right? So like she comes from haunted Serbian stock. She has like a curse in her family where she has this latent thing that turns her into a vicious cat. But it doesn't come out until she's pushed. So she gets betrayed, and then she scares the crap out of a bunch of people in the movie, and then eventually kills like the psychiatrist at the end of it, right? It's literally the same story arc, same beats. Like it's Carrie kills so many more people in so much more spectacular fashion.
Yeah. But
she showed up on every sympathetic horror villain list, and Irina from Cat People showed up on zero. Probably, I mean, it's older, right? But like also because I don't think people see it. Like I was thinking to myself, like how villainous you have to be for me to have sympathy for you. Like Irina and Carrie are the same, but I have more sympathy towards Irina, but she also killed way less people.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, you're not so bad because you killed like not a gymnasium full of
right, exactly,
full of kids,
exactly. And Carrie killed a bunch of people, but she also got pushed a lot harder in present time. It wasn't just the genetic curse; it was also that she was getting pushed by like
constantly
the world's worst mother, right? So like she was like, so I think that front loads a little more sympathy into that character, but like that's, to me, it's like I was starting to wonder, like, is there a body count situation with like a sympathetic villain? Like if you kill X number, like then it's over. Like you just can't be sympathetic for.
Well, that's why, like, I don't know. Like I thought, like, I'm sure like they both crossed your mind, but like Jason and like Freddy, but like Freddy, it depends on which Freddy you talk about. The one where like they're like blatant, like he's a child molester. I'm like, no, you don't get to molest kids and then kill
he's
them.
out.
Like, so you're out. Right. But Jason, like I thought about it, like he was like, especially in the original, like the kids picked on him.
Right.
But then again, it's his mom. So his mom's a villain. But then like
he's a villain too.
Yeah, but
maybe not in the first one necessarily.
But like after that, like I was just trying to think, like, does he really know what he's doing? Right. I don't know. So I couldn't, if I had to think that much about it, I'm like, I probably don't have sympathy.
Right.
For you, or maybe I do. I don't know. So I couldn't get him out. But I think body count, I don't know, man. Like, because like Carrie was pushed. And she had like the gymnasium. I don't know.
Because I didn't even remember like how many people Pennywise killed. I don't remember him killing anyone but like one, maybe. Like I don't even know. Maybe there's backstory where he kills a whole bunch of people, but like I have zero sympathy for this guy. And that's actually what the interesting thing is. Like Randall Flagg from The Stand and Pennywise, like those were the two that came to my mind when I was trying to find Stephen King villains that were, and I haven't read all of it or watched all of the things that came from him, but like they were pretty self-motivated. They were like, one's like kind of like the devil, right? And the other one's kind of like the devil. So they're kind of in control, right? They're not like a Carrie or Cujo and I had zero sympathy for them, but they also like, they didn't kill many people. Like, although Randall Flagg is arguably responsible for a lot of death in The Stand, but whatever. I just felt like it was weird to me because I was like, maybe it doesn't even matter. I think it's kind of how the character is presented to you in the movie, right? And this is one thing that, like, I think one of the greatest, not quite horror movies of all time is a movie called M. And the character in that movie, who you should have no sympathy for because he's a child molester, you have tons of sympathy for two important reasons in terms of movie presentation. One, the actor is amazing, right? And he plays it like, so you're going to be sympathetic, right? I feel like there's characters, there were like villains I might have considered if they'd been played better, but I couldn't. But like if you have just an amazing actor who sells it, like I was super sympathetic. And the other thing is, the movie flipped halfway through and it was like bad guys and villains that were out to get him. So now you got a guy being hunted by people who are, also bad people. So you're like, now you have more sympathy than...
And then by the end of it, like the whole, like, was it like, not, like the courtroom scene at
totally,
the end?
right.
Like you're kind of like, man, these people are like really, like they're like, you see them almost getting like a pleasure out of like killing this guy. I mean, obviously he did some fucked up shit, but like at the same time, you're like, wow, these people are like really.
No, they're like the shark with blood in the water. You can see it in their faces. They're like,
they're
we get to do something bad. It's about to happen.
Like it is really boring around here. We are so glad. We are so glad we caught you finally. We're gonna have some fun.
That's awesome.
So it's a little scary with those people, which. I was thinking, you mentioned it, and it's not, even though it's not horror, and I don't want to like go off on a bunch of horror, but I think Blackjack Randall from Outlander is really good. He's a guy who who you don't have sympathy for,
okay,
because he does like a lot of like raping and like just torturing people,
right? But
like he does it as like a psychological thing to like tell his enemies that he's like above them.
Okay.
So since he's doing it in such a calculated way, I feel like how calculated you are.
The premeditated is your main.
Yeah, that's my thing of what makes a villain have no sympathy. But the people who like get thrown into this shit that they didn't want to be there are the ones I'm usually like, oh, that sucks.
Right. Totally.
Poor thing.
Okay, who else did you reject?
Shit, who else did I reject? There was like a few like classic monsters, like zombies didn't make the list because they're just mindless fucking things going around eating people. Wolfman, a lot of like the slashers didn't make it. Like Chucky didn't make it,
right?
Because in fact he'd be the one with no sympathy because he's a fucked up dude before he was fucked up later.
He has no story arc. He's just
honestly, it was a lot of like '80s villains to be honest.
They were gone right away.
Hellraiser certainly didn't make
the
list. In fact, he's a good one. No sympathy because this whole shit is just like we're gonna inflict pain.
Right.
So, a lot of the '80s stuff. I even was like, what's the Blob's motivation? At one point, I was like, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
This is stupid.
I've gone too far.
I've gone too far. A lot of people. So yeah, a lot of those people didn't make the list. What about you? Who didn't?
I was gonna go radical, because we're early on, so like it's not gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, we're 24 minutes in.
No, I was gonna go radical at one point and just say my most sympathetic horror villain is the Amityville Horror House.
Yeah,
that poor fucking house. I mean, it's just sitting there trying to be the American dream. It's just charming. It's got like, unique windows.
Lake in the back.
It's great. It's got a lake in the back. I mean, it's just trying to like, project wholesomeness and like whatever.
Family
values. Yeah. And it's totally the villain. Yeah. You tell me whatever you want about whoever's possessing it or, DeFeo or like whatever. But that house is the villain. When they do the posters, it's not like a guy in the room with a shotgun. It's the house full on with its cute little windows that now look evil as hell, staring
lit
at you.
up.
Yeah, totally. And that poor house like did not deserve like that, like what it got or like whatever. And I felt like, not to get like too cute about it, but I legitimately did feel like, that one of the things that made that movie strong was that it was, that it's a really American idea that you take everything that you've got as a family and go all in, which is what they do at the beginning of the Amityville Horror. Like they're like, we can't afford this house really, but it's an amazing deal. And we're never going to get a deal like this on this.
It's a killer deal.
Again, right. It's a killer deal. And we're going to take our entire savings and we're just going to go all in. We're going to make this work. Right. And they get broken down like by the fact that the American dream, when that book was written, when that movie was made, when that was resonating with the public, the American dream was broken or breaking. Right? Yeah. So it was kind of like a stand-in for like the American dream, which getting allured by something that grinds your hopes to dust is like the best horror villain like situation ever. Right. And then also, it was like, to me, I was also intrigued by the fact that it was, I like when things upstage things like that. When they were making that, like they knew the house was creepy, but I think they were leaning on the story and didn't realize the resonance of like that message underneath that. Yeah. Like, it's an American idea to just go for it and burn the bridge behind you and just be like, we're going to make this work. Right. But ultimately I just couldn't do it because it's too confused, because it's not clear. The house doesn't have any motivation, right?
Yeah, it's just your typical scary story. Spot, yeah. Right?
So I didn't want to go I love the message behind it, and I hate what happened to that poor house, but I had to throw it out because it was just not going to make sense as a villain. But.
That's a good like character though. Right. The house is,
Well, a lot of cases, like in a lot of cases, the like I was reading reviews of that movie, The Innkeepers, and they said that I think the name of it is the Yankee Peddler Inn is like the main character of the movie, and it's the same with The Haunting. Like Hill House is like, matter of fact, The Haunting of Hill House, the book starts with this house is sitting on a hill and it's sick. This house is deranged. Yeah. There's something wrong with it. Like it's given a personality and like like what have you. So the atmosphere and the characters can be villains, but by my own rules from when I was starting it out, that a villain has to be motivated and in control. I just couldn't use that one, even though I liked the message behind it. I also threw out Blake from The Fog, but I didn't want to because holy crap! I mean they didn't ask to get slaughtered and whatever, right? That was the like they just are trying to get revenge, right? But then I feel like revenge is not in and of itself. I mean, there's no rooting someone to get revenge. You can. I'm not sure it's sympathy is what you have for them.
Yeah.
Like you want justice to get restored. You want there to be balance, but they kind of go about it in like a really. I don't know. Like he was close. Like I'm still torn.
What do you think about like spiritual or demonic beings? Where do they land in your list? Because I thought
they should leave me alone.
I don't think they should manifest in any way. Because like the one thing I was thinking of like the Book of the Dead from Evil Dead, and I was just like, where would that land like in my head? Because like it was just written, anything bound in flesh and written in blood is. I don't think they wrote that book out of compassion.
That's got bad intentions.
So where would that land for you? You think like do they get any sympathy from you? Or
well, no? See, I think that's the thing is I think the spiritual demonic ones, like we were talking about before, I think they only get sympathy for me insofar as there's a backstory or the situation gets confused. Like obviously, like Regan from The Exorcist, like you got to have tons of sympathy for, but she's not the possessing demon.
She's just the vessel for
totally. But then that there's also a thing to be said about like some of the reason that I struggled with like who was on and off my list was the fact that there's just a lot of amazing filmmakers out there. The more emotionally complex a movie is, the harder it is to figure out where your sympathies lie. And sometimes the director is just actively screwing with your sympathy mode, right? Like which is something that like a John Carpenter or like any great director would do. So like I don't know, like I kept coming, but then there was like an eclipse. Like everything just got overshadowed by the fact that I just became convinced that I was going to go with a number one, and I tried to argue myself out of it, and I couldn't. So my number one just won, and then I just stopped thinking about who wasn't making it, and I just got obsessed.
You just went with that one?
I got obsessed with my number one.
I have, so do you want to go into the...
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So for my number one, I picked villains who in some way went down the path they did because of love. So, and I know I said I wrote out Dracula, but now that we're talking about it, like
Right.
at least in Coppola's Dracula, the fact that he goes out to war, he comes back, and like his love's gone, he's just like tormented for all those years.
Oh, totally. Right.
And then so I was thinking of that, but then I was also thinking about Karloff's Mummy, where he gets buried alive.
He's in my final four.
Is he really?
Yes.
Oh, see, I knew we were gonna have, but the fact that since he was just trying to resurrect his love, they were like, no, you can't do that.
Right.
So you're buried alive.
Right.
And then when he comes back many years later, he's like, all right, where's she at?
Right.
I'm gonna hook her up.
He's in my final four, and he influenced my number one.
Oh shit! So I would say The Mummy is probably number one. He's just like trying to get the love of his life back,
Right.
And all like the self-righteous people there were like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right.
Like we're gonna tell you why you're wrong. And then getting buried alive is never like that makes me like hyperventilate like thinking about that. I'm like, oh my god, like, I couldn't watch I couldn't watch Buried with Ryan Reynolds like the whole time. I was like,
oh yeah, The Vanishing like unnerved to the crap. The original one, the remakes it.
So I just felt bad. I'm like he just wanted. How do you say it? Like a Nux on a Moon? Is that her name?
What?
His love is.
Oh, I
just remember how they said it in Brandon Fraser's The Mummy, so I just say a bunch of like
I've never seen that
words and hope it's the right name. So I think The Mummy.
That's a great choice.
Would be my choice.
I was totally but that hits like one of the criteria that I had was, first of all, it's amazing director and amazing actor who's going to make you feel sympathetic, and to be able to act with like in that circumstance, like with so little to work with, right? Like you're in shadow, or you're covered, or you're like, I mean, it's just crazy that to me that to be able to do that, and he really sold that sympathy just because he's an amazingly gifted actor.
It's all in his eyes too.
Right.
It's just
right.
Like, you just see him like he's just like, all right.
And that's another thing that I thought of was just going through the images that pop in your head from like the promotional posters, right? Like some villains are in a really like strong circumstance. Some are like halfway in between. Like Hannibal Lecter's like in amazing shape, but he's also in jail. So he's healthy, but he's, in prison. So he's like half, like whatever.
Yeah.
The Mummy just starting out is in a shitty position. He's just like a rotting, like, right? Like you feel bad from the gate, right? Like he's like, that's horrible, right? He's like, so I don't know how to say her name either. Ankh es Eneman.
I remember in the Brandon Fraser film, it was like a Nux and a Moon. But I know it's not like Moon, like Moon. So I don't know.
All right, well, we'll just call her Nuts in a Moon.
Nuts in a Moon. So yeah, he's trying to save Nuts in a Moon.
Right. Exactly.
But then again, like people are like trying to like, they just want to dig up some treasure and like get quick rich. So
right.
They're probably not, the nicest people to come around. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna harvest your lungs.
Right, exactly.
So
I think that's so I mean that's all story arc, but like are there points you remember in the movie where you felt sympathetic at that moment? Like are there I can think of like obviously Carrie, like when she's standing there and like, that's like the apex of the sympathy. That's when you feel most sympathetic. Like, is there a most sympathetic moment?
No, I think it's just for him, it's just the story. And it's same with Dracula. Like, when he comes back from the war and like he makes like that promise to God. He's like, I'm gonna, you can't stop me. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get the love of my life and all that stuff. No, I think it's just the story, man. I think my brain like fills in the gaps where like I could just come up with like shit where I'm like, oh, that poor guy. He just wants her back. Like,
totally. Well, I mean, and it's from that era of filmmaking, right? I mean, it's not accidental, right? Like Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, like none of them were completely Frankenstein. They were all sympathetic.
Yeah,
it was, and
that's why I didn't want the whole list to be universal, because like the Invisible Man too, like.
He's probably the least sympathetic, though, right?
Like, nah, but like,
because he's legitimately nuts from within.
But he went like beyond the wall nuts. Like after he couldn't figure out how to come back. Yeah,
he's
got my favorite like monologue out of everyone. But like that's
he's
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't want my whole list to be universal.
See, monster. But here's the thing. So this is interesting to me. Is I think a lot of times. What's happening to a horror movie, any character, honestly, what's happening to a character that's bad is also indicative of something inside of them that might be bad or spoiled or off.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's a metaphor for something bad that's happening to them, kind of already. Like Dracula, of that crop of horror movie villains, like it was conspicuous that they were all going it alone. Invisible Man was going it alone. Frankenstein monster is going it alone. Dracula had a slave, right? Like he had Renfield, right? So he controlled things, and that's because the backstory of him is someone who controls things, right? But their kingdom shrunk to like almost zero, right? But they want to control things, and wanting to control people and be in a situation where you're controlling people is not necessarily a great motivation, right? That makes me feel sympathetic towards you. If that's like you're trying to achieve, like harvesting slaves, I'm not going to be like super sympathetic.
Poor thing.
And right, exactly. And that's the thing is like I'm wondering if like the metaphor of the mummy rotting, like I don't think it really, his character was really noble, so I don't think it really impacted him. I think it took a lot of the other villains I was considering out, because I was thinking to myself, the reason the Invisible Man is acting that way, the reason something bad is happening to him is he sort of brought it on himself because there's something really cross-wired inside of him.
Yeah.
I think the mummy is such a great choice because I don't think that applies to him necessarily, right? I think he's pretty safe from that accusation. The reason I dropped him out of mine,
this is what I wanted to know,
is because so there's a moment in the movie where he realizes that this woman looks like she's a reincarnation of his love.
Nuts in a Moon.
Nuts in a Moon. And his plan at that point is to murder her so he can mummify her so that they can be together as mummified lovers in eternity, right?
Yeah.
And that's where like my sympathy for you slips a little bit, because even if your quest is really strong, like I'm totally behind it. Like if you come to like my place to give me a gift, and on the way to give me a gift, you step on my dog, I'm not as excited about my gift anymore.
Unless it's
right, because you did
reincarnation of your dog I just stepped on.
Don't step on my reincarnated dog. Damn it. Nuts in the Moon. Get out of my plate. But right, like there, I feel like, and I don't know if it's just because like the mummy character comes from a harsher time where like ancient Egyptians didn't give a shit about killing people to give, like whatever. But like I just didn't appreciate that one part of his plan. Like I was down with everything else, but like,
he was riding high until
he was right, exactly.
Until that part.
But like when your plan involves like, all right, so here, like imagine him like selling this to you. Like you and I are going to live together forever. You're amazing. I love you completely. I've traveled across centuries to be with you. So we're going to be together first. So first I'm going to strangle you. Hear me out. Hear me out. And then I'm going to mummify you. Oh, hear me out. Why are you backing up? And then we're going to be together forever. And you're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like,
let me think about it. Let me call you back and see.
Right. And everything else, like, I was totally down with, but I was like, I just don't know. Plus, the other thing, I guess, is I was struggling with this, and I probably overthought this part because I really like that mummy choice, but I was struggling with, so like, I developed what to me was two really interesting categories of villains.
All right.
And I actually gave a name to the one. I don't have a name for the other. But there's the category of villain that I think of as the closed loop villain. Okay. All right. So, and then there's the whatever the open loop villain is, whatever. Fruit loop villain. The closed loop villain is only going to be bad insofar as they're contending with the situation they're in and not bad anymore. Okay. So
Gotcha.
Carrie White is not going to rampage through the universe killing people after the prom.
Yeah.
Right. She has a particular score to settle.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have any particular grudges with anyone else. She's not going anywhere else to, like, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Dracula either wanted to, well, he's arguable. Like, you'd have to find some, like, Hannibal Lecter's just going to go on killing forever until he dies. Right. So, like, no matter what you do with Hannibal Lecter, you could go to him and say, you know what, we appreciate your intellect so much, we're making you president. Mm-hmm. Like, he can't feel underappreciated anymore. But he's still going to fucking kill people and be Hannibal Lecter, right? There's nothing you can do to satisfy Hannibal Lecter. He's going to roam through the countryside, killing things until someone, puts him down, right?
Yeah.
A closed loop villain is a villain like the Mummy, where he's just on a really particular mission, right? And after that mission is not like whatever, right? And that's where it got really interesting to me because I was like, I almost can't count the closed loop villains because they're villainous, but they're only villainous in a circumstance. They're not villainous all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
But that would bring the sympathy. Because they're in that area for a reason.
Totally.
So
right. And that's right. And that's why I probably overthought it. And I probably dropped out a lot of people that I shouldn't have. But I literally was like, it's, if you're a closed loop villain, like, it's hard for me to think of you exclusively as a villain, right?
Just curious. I was thinking of famous, villains, and someone who would be in an open loop, who I don't have much sympathy for, would be Predator.
I can see that.
Just because he's like, I just want to make sure I'm the best. So
right, totally.
Come bring it on.
Yeah, or like the Alien Queen.
I was going to ask you about Alien Queen
totally
in
open
particular.
Loop villain, right? Like on its own mission, but its mission has no ending point except for like the end of everything that's not it.
Exactly. So I was thinking, I was trying to see if like the xenomorphs or xenomorphs, if they would somehow make it on the list. But then again, it's just like, I think I sort of put them in the same catalog as like the Wolfman, where it's just like, or when he's the wolf, like he's just doing what it does.
Totally.
So like it, so I didn't know where to put that.
But see, like, here's the thing, like the when I was thinking about like if you think about animals for a second, we think about like Jaws, like the prototypical example, like, Jaws is, the movie forces your hand, right? Like you're not you don't have free choice inside the universe of Jaws. You can have sympathy for the shark by thinking to yourself, the shark's just doing what it does, right? But the shark is acting extremely unusual by shark-like behavior.
And it doesn't help that
right?
every time he's on Presence,
right? No,
like
right,
if
you
I
can
walked
make
in,
anyone a villain with.
Yeah, if I walked into your house and you're done, you'd be like, Nick,
and then stepped on my dog, I'd be like, damn, I knew you were a villain.
Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So like, but sometimes, like the generic version of whatever that is, like the Alien Queen is just doing what she does. She doesn't give a shit about humanity. She doesn't like whatever. She don't, So you could argue to yourself, like, you got to have some sympathy for something that's just doing what it does. It's kind of what we do. Where humans are doing what we do to the planet.
Exactly.
We
like
don't
how is she any different than like what we would do?
Totally. Right. If we had.
So it made the list like. When you start thinking about that kind of stuff, like it just gets like real philosophical. You're like, why is it that
right? Well,
we?
Yeah, I didn't want to get too philosophical, but I was thinking to myself, like that was. But the problem is that there's all kinds of creatures, an infinite variety of creatures in the universe that don't go around unhinging the jaw inside their jaw to tear you. Right? Like, so it's just a little hard to be like, okay, I got tons of sympathy for you.
Or to wrap, their legs around your face. And
Right. There's all kinds of sharks who just like let divers go up and pat them on the nose. Like, they don't have to be jaws, right? So I don't have my sympathy, like, abates.
Animals or creatures were always weird.
Right, totally. Or even it depends on like if you, with the intelligence level, like the creature in Alien is obviously, of an order of intelligence. So like, but I don't know. Like, that's the thing is, like, a lot of times the movie just forces your hand because it has to, because like there have to be the scares and the horror, right? Or the thrills or whatever, and that means that it's gonna have to act villainously, like times 100.
Yeah, you have no choice.
Where's your
watching it, right, other than be like, oh yeah, he's the bad guy.
Totally.
Clearly.
Totally.
Okay, so I'm so curious about your list, because I know you probably.
Well, I gave you pretty much. I mean, you named a ton of people on my list, a ton of entities or whatever that were on my list. Like although Frankenstein is a really haunting example to me of sympathetic character, and he. It's gonna hurt me not to say his name is my number one. It's gonna hurt me because he has no backstory.
Yeah.
Zero. Like that. I mean, that is like
pieces of him might.
Right. Totally. Totally. But that's the haunting part is that he's almost unique in terms of not just horror, because like literature, filmmaking in general. Like he has no backstory. He's forced to contend with another human being's backstory as his backstory.
Yeah. Like
the guy who creates him sets him up with a backstory of frustration and failure and like whatever that there's no, it's like anti-reincarnation, right? So like, I mean, I can't even imagine a more sympathetic position to be in, right? But again,
that would not be fun.
To get back at his creator, he kills his wife. Like, there's other ways to go about revenge. Like, so my sympathy factor, that's the thing is
whenever someone gets killed, you're always like, man.
No, because my number one does some killing, but it's not. Oh,
you're killing me with this.
It's not. See, right, exactly. But that's the thing is Frankenstein was definitely on my list. Mummy was on my list. I was really, it was really hard pressed not to look at some people who, were so there's a really interesting example of Carol from Repulsion, is in my top tier because she's put in a situation where she's going mad. She can't reverse it. She doesn't know what's happening to her. Most likely. And she has one shot at happiness, but it's pulled out from under her. It's such a horrible situation to be in, and you have all this sympathy for it, but she was a closed loop villain. She might have gone off and done other villainous things. She's very similar, actually, in a weird way, to the AI from Ex Machina, because you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, what did you think was going to happen when the AI in Ex Machina escapes? What's happening next?
I don't know.
Right?
The ending frustrated the hell out of me. Man, he helped you get out. You're just going to leave him there?
Right.
To die. But I don't know. I don't know if she was going to...
Is she just going to live her life undercover?
I think she was going to me, it seemed like she really just wanted to, take in the world around her. Right. I don't think she was going to be 1960s killer robot.
Right.
I think she was just more of let me, almost sort of Frankenstein, just let me try
right
out here.
I was thinking to myself, if she wanted to strike back against humanity, what better place to work than the incredibly equipped lab she just walked out of? Right. If she was going to engineer an army of robots or computer viruses, or
she would have just done it
right. Why would she leave? Right. I think she just wanted to leave. Now, who knows, maybe she'll come back because I don't know, who knows how long that thing is going to sit there. But it's that's the thing is the characters the character from Repulsion, I think they just disintegrate over time and they can't continue on as villains. Right?
Yeah.
So I had to take her out. So my number one.
Can I guess?
Yes.
If I had to just take.
Yeah, please.
I'm just gonna
Please,
take a random shot.
I'm so excited.
Shot in the dark.
I gave you one huge clue.
Oh, you did.
I did.
Well, then
with the fact that the Mummy influenced it.
Fuck, if the Mummy influenced it. So it had to be. Well, I can tell you who my random shot in the dark was.
Okay.
My random shot was gonna be Seth Brundle.
Okay.
Because he just wanted to create.
I could totally see that.
Because he was gonna create something that would be completely fucking game changing.
Totally.
He's like, you know what? Fucking, I'm gonna try it on myself, and then like, unfortunately, fucking housefly comes in, and you
right,
get fucked up. So that was my random shot.
Not
so
it,
if
but
someone,
but he's
and it's not Dracula.
No,
not Dracula. Let's see. I have a feeling it's.
So you feel sympathy for the Mummy because of what? Remember what you said.
He wanted the love of his life.
And what happened to him?
He got buried alive. So buried alive. Who got buried alive? Fuck, who got buried alive?
It's weird that you and I both our number ones got buried alive.
Who got buried alive? I'm gonna feel like such a fucking dweeb. When we start recording, all of a sudden my knowledge just fucking goes away.
No.
Buried alive. I don't know. All right.
So anyway, while you're thinking, let me talk about Seth Brundle real quick because he's a really interesting story. He seems like an example to me of what I was talking about, where what's happening to you is a metaphor of something that was wrong in you, and that's the only reason I couldn't put him in. So remember, because story arc plot, like what you said about his story arc is true. He just wanted to do something that was going to be game changing, and something really bad happened, and whatever. But part of why something bad happened is because he seems like an impatient, slightly disorganized, impulsive guy. He didn't dot his I's and cross his T's. There was a fly in the thing. Yeah. And he went ahead, which is very Frankensteinian, right? Like, just make it happen. Like, I'm not going to wait for parts when I sew them together where it looks like a reasonable human being. I'm just going to put this one together. Done's better than perfect.
Exactly.
Right? Like, and because that element is in there, like, he's really like, I definitely was like, he's got to be like hugely considered, but it was just because
at least top like 50.
The metaphor, no, top 10, but like or 20, but the metaphor stain of what's happening to you, you brought on yourself a little bit. And so you're gonna.
Who knew a fly?
No, you're right. You're totally right. But like, and then the way he behaved after didn't seem that. So like, there's I can't even say the saying right, but there's an old saying about alcohol that says it just kind of enhances your personality. So like, if
it doesn't change you, it just makes you more. If
you're a dick, you're 10
are.
times the dick you were. Like, right, and like. The bad parts of his behavior after it happened to him kind of run parallel to his personality a little bit.
I see what you're saying there.
And then they don't, but then they do, but then they don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like
it's not all his
complicated
choice.
Filmmaking, and that's right. But like, there was just something, and maybe he's just so fucking gross that it's hard to be. So, I mean, I'll cop to the fact that like, that's like, I honestly actually considered The Thing.
I don't know. That crossed my mind too, but then I was like, I don't see where the fuck. I don't know. Like, it's just doing its thing. Funny enough.
Yeah, no, exactly right. But that's the thing is like I was like I was like, don't, like, if you're gonna consider like the Alien Queen, then you gotta, like, the thing is like,
yeah. In terms of motivation, like,
right,
yeah.
But like the like, to me, like, I think the most Roger Ebert said an amazing thing once that I think it took me a lot by surprise when I read it. Where they asked him who the greatest villain in cinema was.
Yeah,
and he said Hal from 2001.
Oh, okay,
and his. I don't recall his reasoning exactly, except for that Hal's like in an amazing movie, and it is
that your number one?
Amazing character, and he's super creepy and like whatever. But the sympathy was like Frankenstein. You have no back history. Someone made you. You had no choice.
Yeah.
And then you were given two vastly conflicting instructions. They drive you crazy, right? Like anyone can sympathize with the fact that, like, anyone who works at a job where your boss is like, make sure you do this and then also do this. You're like, wait, those two fucking things don't go together.
Yeah,
like
what
I
do you
can't
want
do
from
those stuff. Right, exactly. Like it drives you nuts, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sympathy to be had for a character who's put in that position, right?
Mm-hmm.
But but my number one is Samara from The Ring.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the reason that she's my number one is she had almost no choice in what happened to her.
Uh-huh.
What happened to her was horrible, multiple times of kinds of horrible, right? Because it's not like she was going from a happy childhood to, and this is why I brought it up in the beginning about like canon. I'm not dealing with like the original or right. Just
you're talking about
the American version of The Ring. So she's autonomous. She's an open loop villain. She's never going to stop.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a high body count, right? It's a super low body count. And not counting the horses. And she what happened to her was horrible. But there's a couple things that were going on here. Like, this is one of the reasons I asked you, can you remember a moment watching The Mummy where you felt sympathy for the mummy, right? Mm-hmm. Because here's one of the amazing things that happened to me after I watched The Ring and then thought about it, watched it again, and then thought about what I was seeing. There's almost no moment in that movie where I don't feel sympathy for her. It's spread across the entire movie.
Yeah, that's a good
videotape. Her cursed videotape is a montage of horrible fucking things that happened to her in code, right? The ladder is she got put in the fucking barn, right? So the shot of the ladder is she's exiled out of the house to live with the horses, right? The ring is her being buried alive. The 7 fingers in the box are the 7 days she lived in the well, losing her fingernails trying to climb up and escape, right? Like, everything encoded in that videotape is an element of why you should be sympathetic towards this character, right? Granted, she's on like a murderous mission or whatever, but her killing Noah at the end is like reads accidental to me almost. Mm-hmm. Like, sure, she manifests, but she doesn't she just looks at him, right? And then he dies, right? So like, she did set up this tape, but I feel like the death is almost incidental. She knows that what happened to her was so horrible. She wants her story to be told.
Yeah. So she's almost just like past everything. Like, she's just like, this is how it is.
Right.
You watched it. I went through it. I'm sorry. Forgive me, but
you're
done.
Right. But bad things, if things that bad can happen in the world, that means that no one's immune from it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so the suffering has to spread. It can't all get stored up in one person. Mm-hmm. Right. And
she's the best of both worlds, though. Like, not only do you feel bad for her, but like, just everything leading up to her. Like, could you imagine if like someone just walked up to you random on the street and they're like, "Hey George, what's up? You got 7 days." Right. For those 7 fucking days, what do you do? What do you do? You're like, it's gonna end. It's like, what?
Right.
How do you do it? Like, how do you manage that life? So like, I think she's the best of both worlds, of like, 1, scaring the absolute shit out of you,
right,
and then 2, feeling bad for her, because like, but like, then again, if you're one of the people who watch the tape, you're not sitting there going, "Oh, that poor girl, she went through all that." You're like, fuck.
Right, totally. But see, one of the things is, and I just realized this is hilarious because like, I categorized her as open loop villain and her symbol's a closed loop. Great, George. But the thing is that like, I was really intrigued by the fact that like, one of the things that I hope age brings you is wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the whole purpose of like believing in something like heaven. Like, you get there and then like the petty things about like getting annoyed about being in traffic go away. Like, you understand things at a higher level, right? Like, the Mummy and a lot of these characters that I was considering, they're adults.
Yeah.
And so in some cases they've lived just gargantuan stretches of time, right?
Yeah.
And instead of becoming wiser, they just stayed the same murderous adolescent that they were at whatever point they were.
True.
And they had time to think about it. And they, like, if someone did something like that to someone at the age that it happened to her, you would just go insane.
Yeah.
You would just go.
You haven't had time to.
You haven't had time, and you're just going to be forever insane because you don't have a chance to mature and like whatever. So to me, being put in that position, not having the ability to mentally, emotionally recover from it, and also just I guess the fact that her main mission is to get her story to propagate. Like the murders. I don't know, because that's weird. It's like I was thinking. I
can see where like when you tally in like the body count, you're like, does that really affect the list? I don't think it does though. Like no. I think like again, sort of like in the Stephen King realm, like she was put in a situation she didn't want to be in, right? And now you have to deal with it. Because like I don't know, because as like society as a whole fucked her over. Totally. Someone in her world that what they did to her was right. So honestly I can see her. I can see what's her name again? How do you say her name? Samara. I can see her looking at society as a whole, being like, "You did this to me." Right. So if you watch this video, you're no better than them. Right. Your turn.
Yeah, but see, that's the funny thing is I'm not sure she's. Well, see, so this is interesting because the society part is interesting to me because
projecting a lot on this little girl.
I know. I'm sorry. There's a visual. So there's a visual trick, and King Kong is not a villain. So I
had him on my screen for a few minutes.
Right, like, nah, but he's definitely not a villain. No, but King Kong. There's an interesting visual trick that happens where it's just like in music, where like. One part of the song is better because of the notes 30 that came before 30 seconds before. Like if you just started the song halfway through and played it, it's not as good as if you just have the whole experience, right? So like one of the reasons you feel sad for King Kong, besides not just his story arc but visually, is they do a great job of framing him. I'm talking about the original. They do a great job of framing him in his habitat where he's the king, right? So every shot you see him in New York is jarring. Like he should not be there. Yeah. And he doesn't look like he belongs there, right? So now you feel bad for him because he looks everything's angles and edges and it's not branches. It's his hands are evolved to grab branches and everything here's like 90-degree angles and glass and like you don't belong here. You're not evolved for here, right? It's not a fair fight, right? So like that visual trick is really interesting to me, right? So like Samara has that there's a really interesting thing where so she comes from let's just call it like a really misogynistic culture in a lot of respects, and she's forced to in the situation where her hair is totally all undone, right? Because like that's the idea, a sign of a disordered mind,
and
like
she's
and she's all right. It's right, exactly. And she's poor hygiene. And she never gets to show her face, right? Mm-hmm. So now you've got someone who just wants to tell their story to the world, and every time she shows her face to someone, they die. Mm-hmm. Like there's just no way for me to turn any angle of this to a part where I don't have sympathy for her. Yeah, right. Like
she just can't catch a break.
Right. And they did a really good job of making you sympathetic for Naomi Watts and her creepy son. Like, too, so, like, that usually works against the villain. But in this case, like, like, the only thing is I'm an animal lover and she drives a bunch of horses to suicide. So that was the only part where I was like, I don't know, like, whatever. But
yeah, like, come on, man.
But she's a kid and they put her in the barn and she was like, in her head, she was like, they don't love me any more than they love their horses. So I'm just going to take those out of the equation.
So every action she does, you sit on it and you're like, oh, okay, you can do that.
No, I don't give her a pass.
No, you get a pass.
Yeah, no pass. I don't give her a pass. I think
never tried to crawl out of a well myself.
I think when I stack those actions and the reason behind them and where they're headed against any of the other villains that I was considering, it was just. I felt like there was a way into a sympathetic feeling that was stronger than I was getting a way into a sympathetic feeling for any other villain for their motivations or circumstances. Yeah. So that was.
You know what? I'm gonna put him back higher on my list, but I think I got to put the Headless Horseman back there. He doesn't want to do that.
Why did he get buried alive?
Well, no. I was just thinking of like you not being in control of your own body. Like he's caught in like a limbo Like, because then I thought about, because I love Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, but like I think about that when he sees like the two little girls, he like gives them like the little hush, and he's like, he could have just killed those girls right there, moved on. So he's obvious. I mean, he was a Hessian who weren't
right.
I don't know. I think being put into a position that you don't want to be in, which he clearly is in,
Totally.
I would put him. I still think the Mummy though.
I have sympathy for anyone who doesn't have a head.
Exactly. So who's your number 2? Just curious if you had to pick.
The Mummy was really. I feel like I would be. I feel like I'd be torn between. I really like the Mummy as a choice, and
I think Frankenstein like almost gets the.
Yeah, I mean, except for honestly, he. Like, this is where I'm not allowed to bring in the book, because if I brought in the book, it would be a slam dunk. But just the movie, because in the book, like, he's really articulate. Like, unlike the movie versions, he literally is like. I mean, he's like the prize debate speaker. Like, and then they made him in the movie. They made him like grunt. So like, in the movie, like he does. That's the thing, though. That's like I said, is like Samara or the Mummy they're killing people. She's trying to get her story told. The Mummy's trying to like love. The Frankenstein is literally just trying to settle a score.
Yeah,
and I just find that a little less sympathetic than
that's true
than the other ones. His mission, the position he was put in, is worse.
Yeah,
but like. There's tons of people that I've met who have had just really bad hands dealt to them in life. Right? And some of them have responded in such an amazingly noble, dignified way.
Yeah.
That I don't feel like it necessarily is, but that's like a deeper discussion. I don't know. I feel like
that's for the next episode.
I feel like the Mummy is my number 2, just because he was literally like my. And remember, he met all my criteria. Like it was presented amazingly by an amazing actor who clearly had a sympathetic read on their own character as they acted it. And they were put in a position not really of their choosing unfairly, like Samara. Right?
And by the time you come back to life, you're like, I don't care.
Right.
I'm gonna do what I need to do. I've waited this long.
But it's really weird that out of like the literally infinite lists of villains, you and I both picked ones that were buried alive. That's super.
That is, I love that. All right, so Samara and the Mummy, those are the ones. Everyone else is in between. Okay, well, that was the first episode. That was the first episode of Hollow Weekly. Hollow Weekly. I like that. I like that one. Well, let's see. We'll go with that one. So, Okay, Samara and the Mummy. There you have it. So,
tell us yours.
Let us know what you think. If you agree or disagree, and let us know who you think the most sympathetic villain and the least sympathetic villain. While you're at it, why not? It's a horror discussion. It can go on for hours. Exactly. All right. Well, till next time, we'll figure out a schedule and a real title and go with it.
See you later.
See you later.